Hello, my name is Dr. Jim Rogers, and what I'd like to do in this quick video introduction is talk about what I do and how we work across the Southwest with a large Oracy program that we run. I'm going to give you a little bit of context to this, talk about who we are, what we do, how we work, and why we are doing what we're doing. So a quick bit of background, a quick bit of context for you. I've worked across the Southwest now for a number of years. I've been a teacher and a school leader. I've worked regionally with the Teaching School Council until this year. And I've worked at Exeter University as well. So I've had a fairly sort of unique and really interesting and exciting career working in education over the years, involved at many different levels. But it's enabled me to perhaps see education in a slightly different way, a slightly different perspective. A number of years ago, when I was working in Plymouth on school improvement, looking at school data, looking at outcomes for schools, I was presented with some quite stubborn issues that actually reflected the education picture across the Southwest and actually nationally as well. Issues that seem to be headline issues around pupil attainment and progress, pupil premium children, reading, maths, reasoning, white working class boys, the whole mix, the whole things that you're not surprised about at all, even attendance. And also faced with a picture of continued expensive and time-consuming CPD training programs that seem to have little traction on some of these issues. So that led me to think about two things. One was to look at the actual CPD model that we were using, and to try and look at a different approach to working with teachers. The ultimate goal, and this isn't a very sexy title, very succinct, but what we're looking for is sustained changes in professional behaviours. So it's about professional learning rather than going on a course. It's trying to flip that sort of top-down model to a bottom-up model, so we've got that engagement and professional learning taking place. So I did quite a lot of work on CPD models or CPL models. But I also work with school leaders on trying to understand the picture, try and understand the issues in schools, and having taught in the city as well, I had some idea of what that might look like. And what we could see was a clear correlation between deprivation and pupil outcomes, and largely linked around what we felt was issues with language development. So how children were coming into the early years setting, poorly prepared for life in general, low levels of language sort of development and life skills, and seeing that sort of permeate all the way through up to Key Stage 4, holding back those children's ability to make the progress that they could otherwise make. So we looked at, instead of looking at the kind of some of the headline issues there, what we looked at was perhaps some of the causes behind that. And I wanted to focus on oracy and language development in particular. So I did my own sort of little bit of cursory research. I went around the country with some colleagues looking at other programs that were working in Bradford and Stevenage. We visited the fantastic School 21 in London, and we really developed our own understanding of where oracy might play its part in the development, the kind of pedagogical development of children in the city. The long and the short of it is that became the Plymouth Oracy project, which still runs today. It's a fantastic project serving the schools in Plymouth and across Devon with my colleagues, my old colleagues in the Plymouth Teaching School or Plymouth Teaching Alliance. I've continued to run programs beyond the city. So over the last couple of years, we've worked in Cornwall, we've worked in South Gloucestershire this year, and we've worked in Wiltshire this year. We've actually worked with 164 schools beyond Plymouth. That could be around about 33,000 children that have benefited from this Oracy program. So we're really delighted by that. And actually the pandemic has given us an opportunity to work in a different way, which I'll talk about in a minute. But let's just talk about Oracy itself, just very briefly. I'm sure many of you will know now what Oracy is. Over the last few years, we've done a lot of work to raise its profile, and you'll know that it's become nationally recognised as a thing. Now that's great. That gives it a real sort of sense of it being something rather than nothing, and it's not a fad. But it comes with the risk that it potentially could become part of some sort of government policy in the future, or even something that's assessed. So we're very keen that we develop teachers' understanding of Oracy early. So we do that work now. We get schools thinking about Oracy, practicing Oracy, developing that teacher understanding at a whole school level, and taking our time and doing it really, really well. Now, talking about that national picture, there's been an all-party parliamentary group that have looked at Oracy over the last couple of years, and they've published a final executive summary of their findings of their work, or a final report this summer. And they've looked at 5 areas, or they think they've identified 5 areas of impact. And I've written these down because I'm not very good at remembering lists, but they reflect exactly what we've seen on the work that we've been doing in the Southwest. And actually we contributed to the evidence base for the final report. So the top line is improved academic outcomes, particularly for those students from disadvantaged backgrounds. That's where we've seen the biggest impact. We know that it underpins literacy and vocabulary acquisition. So it's about developing the language skills, the speaking skills, talking skills, as well as developing the kind of disciplinary language, the specific subject, specific language that we need in schools to learn. And for me, that's very much around pedagogy. So language allows students to access the curriculum. It allows students to make sense of the world around them. It allows all of us to interact, to socially engage, to make and socially construct knowledge and understanding. So for me, without language, without the very basic building blocks that we need in life, the rest of the world around us becomes more and more inaccessible. And that is what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing, where there's high levels of deprivation. Many of those children are growing up and going out into life without the necessary skills to then succeed. So that supports another area, one of the findings from the APPG, which is about access to employment and thriving in a life beyond school. It's also about supporting well-being and confidence, and particularly following the pandemic, we think this is a particularly key area for children, and learning how to express themselves. We've seen links with improved behaviour. We've seen links with improved school attendance because students are learning how to express themselves, and they're getting less frustrated and less sort of het up and frustrated and then sort of lashing out. So it very much links to behaviour as well. And it also links to citizenship and a sense of agency, how we understand an increasingly complex world around us. So all of those issues from the environment to politics to what we're seeing at the minute with Brexit, the pandemic and COVID, all of these complex things that young people are having to deal with. Language is one of those basic sort of foundations to be able to understand and interact with the world around us. So we think Oracy is really, really important, but we don't want it to become a fad or the next trendy thing. And we definitely don't want schools thinking this is a quick fix to some of the issues and the problems they have. We take a very long-term approach to this. If you were to look at the Education Endowment Foundation's implementation guidance, we focus at the first stage of that, which is explore. We ask for teachers and Oracy leads to spend time exploring Oracy in their classrooms, in their settings, starting small and then scaling up. Ultimately looking for whole school engagement further down the line and interaction with parents and local communities. And anecdotally, that's been one of the most exciting impacts of the work that we've done. So we have a really good kind of delivery model, but let's just talk about the people I work with. The main colleague that I work with is a fantastic lady called Judy Clark. I couldn't speak more highly of Judy. She's one of those real gems. When you get to meet her, you'll understand what I'm talking about. She's been previously a primary advisor for the National Literacy Trust. She's a lead Oracy champion. She's a lecturer at Marjon University and a primary specialist, and she is absolutely wonderful, and she provides much of the delivery and the expertise on the programme for the primary schools. I'm really excited that this week I've met and will be working with Dr. Laura Kerslake on a secondary program. Now, before you get too excited about that, we're just going to start very, very small this year with a couple of schools on a kind of invitation basis, but with a view to developing that expertise at the secondary level so that we can roll that out and scale that up over the next couple of years. Laura works at the University of Cambridge. She works with her colleagues from Oracy, Cambridge, Neil Mercer, William Wegerif and co. And she's really, really well placed to work with our secondary schools. We've also worked with another fantastic lady, Carol Satterthwaite. Carol is another primary literacy consultant and an independent literacy consultant. She was behind many of the programs that we looked at across the country. And she's absolutely brilliant, and I'm hoping to engage Carol in some of the input for the programs going forward. So just think about very quickly about the delivery model and how we sort of operate. Initially, this was all, of course, face-to-face, and that adds expense and makes the program less accessible to schools. So what we've developed and it's worked really, really well this year in South Gloucestershire and Wiltshire in particular is a sort of blended online and face-to-face model. So we will do some face-to-face content or delivery when permitted, and that's really important to develop that kind of collaboration and social capital across schools and colleagues. But what we also do is we pre-record content. So we use a secure link on YouTube. We pre-release those materials to the schools that have signed up, giving time for colleagues to look at that, to think about that, to watch it in the bath or when they're walking the dog, wherever it may be, trying to make that content as accessible as possible. And then we have regular Q&A sessions, sort of webinar sessions, discussion sessions, where we bring everybody together and we talk about the content that was delivered online and look at what that looks like in practice in the classroom. And that's worked really, really well. We're finding the sweet spot so that we've got some momentum behind the program, but we're not going too fast and we're not going too slow is really, really important. But that enables us to get that kind of inclusive element to the program. We also always hope that we can create some sort of conference or get together at the end. Of course, we did that online this year, but actually it was really, really successful. Very, very much hope we can do it in person at some point when we start these programs next year, towards the end of the program. But one of the key things here, and this is something I'm really, really excited about, you can see I'm quite energized by this, is that I want to create a really strong network across the Southwest with all of those schools that have already gone through the programs in Cornwall, South Gloucestershire and Wiltshire, now having Swindon Teaching School Hub, Five Counties Teaching School Hub and the Teaching School Hubs in Cornwall involved. We've got a really, really strong network, and we're able to link with colleagues in Plymouth and Devon as well, hopefully in the future as well. So we can have a really strong Oracy network right across the Southwest, which I think will put us in a really, really strong position. It's something I'm very excited about. So lastly, the last couple of points are that I mentioned the Teaching School Hubs. I'm really delighted actually. Over the years, we've gone from absolutely no understanding at kind of a minister or government level around Oracy to now being in a really fortunate position that Teaching School Hubs, who have put Oracy down as one of their CPD areas of focus, have had that approved by the Department for Education. Of course, I'm absolutely delighted about this, and it really creates a strong delivery platform for us to work through across the Southwest. So what I'm hoping is that this has whetted your appetite. Your Teaching School Hub leads will be able to talk more about the impact of the programs that we run across the Southwest and what this will look like going forward. We're hoping to launch the new programs in January, February time after Christmas in 2022 and work right across next year into the following academic year, which would be really, really exciting. So I'll leave it to you to make your decision. I very much hope we get an opportunity to work together in the future. We're really delighted to be able to work across the Southwest again. It's super exciting. I'm so excited I don't want to stop talking, but I'm going to leave it to your colleagues to take it from here. So good luck, stay safe, and I look forward to working with you all soon. Take care. Bye-bye.